Okay, let's unpack this. We are commencing analysis, not just in media or in the middle of the action, but right at the point of catastrophic systemic failure.
That's right. We are past the initial rush, past what the subject's own consciousness marks as the euphoric crest.
And the time signature places us.
Yep.
Where exactly?
It places us precisely between 200, 12.3, and 40 hour. The subject, who is experiencing profound chemical dependency and paranoia, is now operating within what he used to call the interval of issues resolution.
Right. And the tragedy, I suppose, is that this interval, which should be for clarity, has become the exact location of his physiological betrayal.
That's the core of it. We're not looking at a high, we're looking at the inevitable crash.
So our mission for this deep dive, then, is to conduct a kind of clinical autopsy, a post-mortem on a consciousness and a body subjected to relentless recursive dread.
And we're doing it using only the cold, hard data of the narrative stream. We have to establish the forensic context.
Okay, so what's the immediate status? What is the initial physiological report?
The initial status report focuses entirely on somatic fixation, the body's mechanical response to the continuous nasal ingestion of the alkaloid compound.
He's suffering a systemic neurochemical disadvantage.
Profoundly so. We see neurological suppression so complete, he describes the resulting sensation as interstellar cold and nasal numbness.
That is such a chilling phrase, interstellar cold. It's so expansive for what is really a localized symptom.
It is. It immediately tells you the chemical buffer hasn't just numbed him, it's exiled him from his own body's natural temperature regulation. He's adrift.
And the description of the sinuses.
It's just as precise. The documentation states the sinuses are frozen against the skull, numb and hung with crystal frost.
So this loss of sensation is right in the most central part of the face, the very channel he uses to ingest the compound. The irony is just profound.
It's a complete betrayal by the system he relies on.
And this numbness, it's not restricted to his head, is it? We have that critical detail about his lower extremities, the cessation of proprioception.
Yes. For anyone less familiar with the term, proprioception is basically your brain's sense of where your body is in space, your internal GPS.
And his is offline.
Completely. The subject registers his legs as physically ending precisely at the knees.
At the knees.
Everything below that point is functionally excised from the feedback loop of his nervous system. It doesn't exist to him.
So just imagine trying to execute some kind of tactical evasion when you have zero information about where your feet are, what they're doing, what they're even touching.
It's an enormous mechanical disadvantage. I mean, that sounds like a recipe for a spectacular, non-stealthy fall.
Exactly. But the greatest internal assault isn't even the cold or the numbness. It's the noise. The system is generating this high-amplitude internal acoustic signature.
And this is where the internal physiology completely breaks down and becomes an external threat generator. The cardiac function is so erratic, so amplified.
But the source text describes the heart sound as being like a shoe in the Ennet House basement's dryer.
Yes. It's not a steady beat. It's a metallic, rattling, asymmetrical chaos. It's an awful sound.
I love that specific awful description, that sound, that rhythmic thump rattle is fundamentally driving his external perception of threat.
It's the engine.
His own heart is fueling the paranoia.
It creates what we call an anxiety closed loop. The internal organ, in its distress, is producing a sound that the subject's chemically altered mind perceives as an external source of surveillance or pursuit.
The body, specifically the heart, is literally manufacturing its own soundscape of doom.
This is the ultimate somatic betrayal we are documenting here. The threat is coming from inside the house, so to speak.
So, to summarize the starting point, the subject is already operating on a double deficit. He's physically separated from his environment below the knee, and he has an internal noise generator, confirming an external unseen threat. We have to remember this profound physical failure as we move on.
Yes, let's transition into section 1. We need to conduct a detailed analysis of the chemical stasis and the resultant otiose function.
The alkaloid compound. It provides a temporary perceived advantage, right? A heightening of mental awareness.
It does, but the cost is the abandonment of basic biological inputs necessary for survival. It's the definition of a false economy.
And the core necessity that's rendered, what's the phrase, otiose and optional?
Sustenance, eating. The observation of extended temporal periods of nutritional deficit confirms that the chemical process has overridden one of the most basic biological survival drives.
So what does that look like on the outside? What's the physical manifestation?
It's a direct consequence of starvation and chemical abuse. a profound, ghostly pallor, a deathly whiteness.
And this pallor is then, paradoxically, emphasized by his chosen apparatus of concealment.
Exactly, by the sombrero's portable shade. He is fading into a ghostly white, and he is actively choosing to intensify that effect with his disguise. It makes no sense.
This is where that infra-thin line between the organic and the inanimate starts to just completely blur. We're talking about the mechanical failure of the nasal system, right?
Yeah.
The very system he uses is physically collapsing.
It is. The sources document the absolute blackness and high gloss of his fake facial hair. The mannequin's mustache promoted from the upper lip of a mannequin at Lechmere's.
So it's a cheap, mass-produced item, a piece of plastic.
And it is secured by promoted crazy glue, a permanent rigid fix for a temporary bodily function problem. But here's the grotesque part.
This is the part I can't get out of my head.
The chemical numbness means he cannot feel his own nose running. So this organic liquid failure, the spontaneous discharge from a nose lens can't feel running, runs down.
And it actually enhances the gloss.
It enhances the gloss and the adherence of the inorganic plastic mustache. It's a perfect, horrifying synergy of decay.
The body fluid becomes part of the adhesive mechanism for the plastic mask.
He is literally gluing his disguise on with his own decomposition. It reinforces the fact that the man beneath it all is breaking down into a collection of failing systems and inert parts.
So let's pull back and look at the whole ensemble, the apparatus of concealment, which the stream hilariously, tragically categorizes as a gaudy pastiche.
It's an incredible inventory, if you're a listener trying to visualize this. Fluorescent yellow snow pants.
The kind you wear when visibility is the absolute top priority, like on a ski slope in a blizzard.
Paired with the glossy coat of a long-tailed tuxedo.
And then the accessory that just completes the look. A sombrero with little wooden balls dangling from the brim.
The whole thing is designed not for blending in, but for calculated, overwhelming visibility, which the subject, of course, misinterprets as anonymity.
But the true mechanical failure, the one that is absolutely going to betray him, is in the ocular system.
The oversized tortoiseshell glasses, yes.
Now, these glasses are technically advanced. They darken automatically in response to external photonic input, street lights, car headlights, that sort of thing.
It sounds like a protective mechanism, a feature,
Yeah.
but it immediately becomes a vulnerability, a critical one.
Oh, exactly.
Well, the mechanism is either too slow or, more likely, too sensitive. When it detects the sharp, bright input of a streetlight, it darkens instantly. But there is a significant delay in the return to light sensitivity when he moves out of that cone of light.
So he's plunged into momentary darkness.
A transient spatial disorientation that compromises two vital sensory street senses.
Wait, so the very thing that's meant to shield his eyes is functionally inducing brief, periodic blindness every time he passes a lamp.
That is the ultimate technical glitch. It means his so-called stealth is constantly being undermined by his own equipment.
And yet, despite this, he maintains this completely false perception of stealth and nonchalance both.
Which leads to the critical miscalculation at the heart of the pathology. People are giving him a wide berth. Of course they are. They are consciously stepping around the spectacle of this man in bright yellow snow pants and a tuxedo and a sombrero.
And because the environment is avoiding him?
He draws the conclusion that he is invisible.
He is confusing the act of receiving a wide berth from the environment with the state of invisibility.
Precisely. He believes the avoidance is due to his superior cunning when in fact it's a repulsion response to a highly visible, deeply disturbing figure. The pastiche of failure is total.
So the chemical stasis is leading to mechanical failure.
Which is then being magnified by a deeply flawed, self-defeating strategy of concealment.
It's a profoundly sad feedback loop. His decay is just amplified by his attempts to hide it.
So, given the systemic betrayal of his body, the frozen feet, the rattling heart, the self-blinding glasses, the subject has had to adapt his core operational structure. This is post-ejection from the facility he calls the house.
And that ejection, that banishment, he's pathologically reinterpreted it. It's not a failure in his mind, it's a strategic necessity.
Yeah.
The mandate to openly hide.
It gives his constant movement a purpose. The vigilance mandate is brutal and absolute. He is operating under a protocol of never sleeping, ever moving.
And remaining alert in all 6 directions at all times.
The relentless motion is less about pursuit and more about maintaining a functional buffer against the realization of his own internal collapse. For him, stasis equals recognition of decay.
And he's strategically selecting his operational zones. He targets the eponymous streets of Cambridge and Somerville.
Believing this area is the last place they would think to find him. He's banking on his pursuers applying rational predictive logic, while his own logic is just spiraling out of control.
This is where his fractured mental map dictates the specific forms of surveillance. It's not random. It's executed by two specific invisible vectors.
Yes, both derived from past experiences that have been absorbed and distorted by his current paranoia. This is where the recursive dread gets formalized.
Okay, let's start with vector alpha, ground surveillance. This is what he deems the most fearsome surveillance.
And it's carried out by unlikely-looking people that followed you by walking in front of you.
That detail alone is just masterful in its depiction of paranoia. The stalker is leading the target. It's an impossible situation.
And the hardware is meticulously detailed. This demonstrates the subject's need for concrete evidence of the invisible threat. These unlikely agents are equipped with small mirrors in their glasses' temples for rearward observation.
Or elaborate systems of cellular communicators for reporting to the command center. He is convinced that he is the epicenter of a highly technical, infinitely coordinated operation.
Then we have vector beta, altitude surveillance.
This is the presence of unseen helicopters, perpetually hovering too high to be visually confirmed. This threat is critical because of the way it merges internal and external reality.
This is the anxiety closed loop in its purest form. The sound of the non-existent helicopter rotors is disguised as the subject's own drumming heart.
Or the cardiac chop.
The internal somatic noise, that shoe in the dryer, is reinterpreted by his consciousness as the sound of the external threat, the whump-whump-whump of rotor blades.
So every single beat of his own distressed heart confirms the immediate, inescapable presence of the surveillance team hovering above him.
He can't run from the threat.
Because the threat is located inside his own chest. It's a perfect psychological double bind.
The sheer cognitive effort required to maintain this level of paranoia is astounding. So, to help anchor himself, he utilizes the immediate spatial environment, the area of Little Lisbon.
Right. The environment acts as his structural framework. He's familiarized himself with the networks of alleys and transoms and backtrash lots.
He's using the physical complexity of the urban sprawl as a tactical evasion mechanism, a maze to hide in.
But equally important is the temporal dictation. Because his internal state is so chaotic and sleepless, he's constantly relying on external objective markers.
The overhead clocks of banks and churches. These public, indisputable time sources impose a necessary structure on his otherwise free-floating, time-dilated chaos. They tell him time is still moving forward in a predictable way.
And we have to document his hardware. He is armed.
He is. We have the presence of the Browning X444 serrated knife strapped inside one sock in a shoulder holster.
A close-quarters weapon. It indicates he's preparing for a sudden, brutal, and very personal engagement.
But the most symbolic piece of hardware he carries is the theoretical text, the James Principles of the Gifford Lectures.
Which is no longer a source of knowledge, it's just a vessel, and it's now significantly lighter than it should be.
Because its internal space, its razored-out receptacled heart, has been hollowed out to serve as a covert receptacle, a hiding place.
So the book, once a symbol of intellectual pursuit, is now just an empty shell, closer to empty than the subject is comfortable acknowledging.
It's a perfect encapsulation of his current existence. What was once designed for deep, abstract thought has been gutted and repurposed for purely functional, clandestine survival.
His intellect has been literally hollowed out and replaced by tactical fear.
Okay, so the next major segment of the narrative stream, it locks onto the immediate focus of his hypervigilance, the obsessional target.
We transition from this generalized paranoia to a specific imminent action.
The target is identified with a chilling clinical objectification. We have observation of two subjects, two very small-sized Chinese women, being trailed east on Bishop Allen Drive under Central.
And the language used just immediately strips them of humanity.
Completely. They're reduced to inanimate objects compared to fire hydrants in size.
Their movement is described with equally dehumanizing terms. They don't walk, they scuttle with a kind of insectile rapidity.
Moving centipedishly abreast. They're not seen as two individuals, but as two parts of a single, coordinated, insect-like entity.
This pattern continues with the auditory analysis, doesn't it? Their conversation.
It's immediately classified as anxious and high-pitched monkey language. This dehumanization is then given an explicit pseudoscientific justification in the subject's internal monologue.
The declaration is explicit. Evolution proved your orientoid tongues were closer to your primatal languages than not.
It serves a dual purpose, it justifies the intended aggression, and it turns the sound of their conversation into nothing more than background noise, reinforcing the subject's isolation and his pathological sense of superiority.
And the exclamatory speech. As he gets closer, he can hear it.
He processes it as having an explosive ricocheting sound, creating a component of bowing to every word.
So human conversation is literally transformed into chaotic, non-meaningful physical noise. It just further solidifies the target's distance from the subject's operational reality.
And this feeds directly into the projection of value, what we're calling the wealth hypothesis.
The sheer size of the paper shopping bags the women are carrying becomes the trigger for his predatory intent.
The entire premise of the attack is rooted in a twisted, internalized, and completely unsubstantiated belief system. The subject operates under the supposed universal knowledge
That your basic Orientoid types carry their earthly sum total of personal wealth with them at all times.
Wait, their entire wealth, not just, cash for the day, but everything they own.
Everything. This belief elevates the shopping bags from containing groceries or consumer goods to being mobile, high-value banking receptacles.
So the conclusion is therefore immediate and compelling. The Chinese female species of Oriental utilizes these mammoth, double-width, twine-handled shopping bags as mobile vaults.
And they therefore necessitate immediate acquisition by the subject.
It shows the extreme economic stakes of his delusion. He's not planning to steal a wallet. He's planning to steal a life's savings, all based on a deeply racist and chemically induced pathological conviction about shopping habits.
And here's a fascinating wrinkle that strengthens his internal belief system. He temporarily loses them.
Yes, he confirms his controlling discretion by having to perform 2 successful shakes. He momentarily loses the women, and his first thought is that they were actually trailing him as part of his Vector Alpha surveillance.
So his paranoia flips the script. But then he realizes his mistake and has to reacquire them.
And the energy cost for this reacquisition is massive. He has to tear ass around through alleys and vault wooden fences. This is not nonchalant stealth. This is a high-effort physical chase.
But the recursive action doesn't make him question his initial paranoia at all.
No, in fact, the difficulty solidifies his conviction. Because he successfully executed this high-effort evasion and then successfully reacquired the target, it reinforces the pathological belief that he maintains controlling discretion over the general situation.
The difficulty of the task is just proof of his superior tactical skill.
Right, it's not an indication of his rapidly failing physical state. The hunt validates the hunter, regardless of the cost.
So as the hunt reaches its climax, we enter this chaotic environment of field observations. The stream clocks this at roughly 200 and 214 points an hour. This section is essential because it shows the outside world mirroring the subject's internal breakdown.
The urban landscape is documented as a place of absolute congestion. We see vehicle traffic packed bumper flush, myriad double parking. It's an environment of physical obstacles and structural impedance.
It increases the difficulty of the planned snatch and sprint.
Absolutely. And the peripheral inputs. They establish a backdrop of completely nonlinear human decay, where grotesque behavior is just normalized.
We have that observation of a gray-faced female subject squatting between 2 dumpsters, multiple skirts hiked up. It's an image of exposed public degradation, just blending into the filth of the urban environment.
But the most significant neighboring observation is the man in the rat-colored suit.
This guy is fascinating.
He is executing this repetitive, ritualistic behavior, shooting a suction cup arrow at a for-lease building, then drawing miniature chalk circles pinkish tone on the brick around the impact point. He's engaging in a precise, self-defined pattern.
That is such spectacular specificity. A man in a cheap suit carrying out a completely meaningless, defined, ritualistic mission with chalk and a toy arrow. It's a perfect mirror of Lenz's own existence.
It is, a person imposing utterly precise, irrational order on chaos.
The text even notes the subject's internal thought as in as he tries to define the other man's specific pathology.
These 2 isolated figures, the paranoid hunter and the ritualistic chalk man, briefly exist on the same street. 2 self-contained pathologies ignoring one another as they pursue their distinct, self-justifying routines.
And the soundtrack to this moment, this highly concentrated moment of urban pathology.
An open window across the street continuously producing the star-spanned banner.
Of course. Amidst the congestion, the drug-induced paranoia, the dehumanization, and the bizarre ritual, the national anthem plays on a loop. It's just disorienting contextual noise, providing an utterly ironic external structure.
And it's at this chaotic, congested point that the physiological shift to aggression occurs. The subject registers the increasing energy cost, the need for a high output, immediate physical exertion for this snatch and sprint.
He's close enough now to distinguish patterns in the women's hair coverings. The clear, like plastic flags they wrap their little hair in.
Proximity requires action, and the body responds perfectly, leveraging the very chemistry that has been destroying him.
The cardiac response speeds from his chaotic rattle to a steady warming gallop.
This warming sensation is the crucial trigger. Adrenaline output, generated by the proximity to the prey, partially overrides the neurochemical suppression.
So for the first time since the start of our analysis, the subject is able to feel his feet again.
The surge of adrenaline is temporarily fixing the system's mechanical failure. It's allowing him to regain proprioception just when he needs it most.
The autonomic function kicks in beautifully. The adrenaline successfully dries the running nose, stopping that flow of discharge onto the mustache.
And it stabilizes the perioral muscles, the ones previously moving around on his face. The body is briefly stabilized and functional, driven entirely by the hunt.
The excitation response is so powerful, it's localized and labeled within the fluorescent snow pants. The term the frightful hog registers.
This localized physical manifestation of predatory excitement is observed to stir slightly with excitement of wits and the thrill of the hunt. His entire physical structure, as grotesque as it is now completely aligned with his predatory intent.
And this surge culminates in the declaration of total control. The high, fueled by adrenaline, convinces him that this activity is definitively not the cutting-edge surveillance he's been dreading.
But rather a reversal of roles, a state where the shoe is on the other foot.
The targets are confirmed as unwitting.
And that confirmation solidifies his belief that he has total control of this situation. His conviction is absolute. He is the predator, not the prey.
And this psychotic assertion of dominance is immediately manifested in a physical, motor celebration.
A single, small, contained act of pure controlling joy, documented as a tiny little yellow brick road stutter skip of pure controlling glee, fueled by adrenaline invisible for all to see.
This is the absolute peak of his delusion, a moment of perceived omnipotence that is entirely unstable and transient, dependent only on that temporary chemical spike.
And this is where the structural integrity of the narrative stream suddenly breaks down. Just as Lenz performs his stutter skip of glee, convinced he has total control of his local situation.
The analysis abruptly introduces a parallel, disconnected narrative stream involving les assassins des fauteuils roulants.
The shift confirms the objective non-linearity of the narrative environment. We are immediately pulled from the localized, chemically induced paranoia of Lenz into a completely separate, high-stakes, international operational mandate.
For you, the listener, we are talking about a different type of threat entirely. The assassins in wheelchairs. This introduction shatters Lenz's fragile, subjective reality.
He might feel like he has total control over two Chinese women carrying shopping bags.
But a much larger global-scale threat exists entirely independently of him. He has no idea.
The presence of less assassins confirms that the subject is operating within an environment of total objective chaos regardless of his internal conviction. The objective for the assassins is to secure the entertainment.
A highly sought-after, highly sensitive cartridge of objective value.
And their operational approach is strictly disciplined. Unlike Lenz's chemically fueled improvisation, they are prepared to pursue a dual pursuit modality to secure their objective.
Okay, let's look at the less better option first.
The less better, or indirect route, is defined by traditional spycraft. Surveillance, infiltration, and the painful process of securing information from surviving associates.
This involves subjecting the actress, the rumored performer, or relatives to a technical interview.
Which is a clinical euphemism for interrogation and torture. This route is hoped to lead back to the original auteur's cartridge.
And this route is held abeyant. It's postponed due to the inherent risks and exposures. It's deemed too slow, too messy, and too traceable for a group operating with such calculated efficiency.
Therefore, the director route is the preferred, currently active mandate. Their strategy is singular, to locate and secure a master copy of the entertainment on their own.
A high-priority, high-efficiency objective that demands immediate, concentrated action.
And the narrative stream immediately anchors their location. It confirms they are physically present, still here in the Antitoise shop of Cambridge.
So this place is a hyper-organized, deadly foreign entity just blocks away, hunting for the same objective that may or may not be related to Lenz's current path.
They are actively executing the mandate to be turning all the stones, using the idiomatic phrase, come on, deet, underscoring their calculated, methodical approach.
Which contrasts sharply with the chaotic environment of Little Lisbon.
This simultaneous existence of two entirely separate, high-stakes plots confirms that Lenz's reality is unstable and layered. He thinks he's in control, but he's a bit player in a much larger game he doesn't even know is being played.
He believes he is in total control, the hunter, fueled by his internal chemical spike. Meanwhile, he is unknowingly surrounded by external objective threats operating with cold, professional efficiency.
Searching for something infinitely more valuable than a couple of shopping bags full of perceived wealth, his yellow brick road stutter skip of pure controlling glee is happening on a stage set for complete, unforeseen devastation.
The subject's isolation is an illusion. The objective threat is real, high-functioning, and entirely separate from his paranoia.
So we circle back now to the core of the subject's condition, moving toward the final assessment. What does this deep dive into his narrative stream tell us about the sustainability of his state?
The conclusion seems inescapable.
It is. The cycle of movement, vigilance, and chemical saturation is an infinite loop, the stasis of the double bind.
So the subject's brief, powerful moment of total control was an illusion, maintained solely by continuous high-energy motion and the powerful self-deceptive power of adrenaline.
And that temporary chemical clarity, the warmth, the ability to feel his feet, the stabilization of his facial muscles, it will inevitably subside.
The necessity of never sleeping and ever moving ensures that the systemic neurochemical disadvantage can never be resolved. He will crash.
And the subsequent crash will be deeper and more profound than the initial one.
So the final observation has to return to the mechanical vulnerability that will define his failure.
We have to. We focus again on the self-defeating design of his disguise, specifically the automatically darkening glasses and their dependence on the external light source.
That moment of involuntary blindness is the unavoidable flaw in the armor.
Exactly. The source notes that the subject stumbles only slightly after each streetlight's light. That momentary disorientation is the predictable mechanical hitch, the crack in the facade of stealth.
It's the persistent, involuntary vulnerability that will betray his claimed stealth in a moment of necessity.
So the total control he asserted in Section 4 is transient. It was predicated on a chemical spike that allowed a temporary, seamless integration of his senses. But the fundamental system failure, the sensitivity of the glasses, remains a mechanical trap built into his own operational equipment.
He is perpetually setting a trap for himself with every single step he takes under a streetlight.
The hunt may continue, unresolved, but the outcome is structurally predetermined by the body's unavoidable mechanical response to external stimuli.
So what does this entire forensic deep dive mean for you, the listener?
Right.
We've analyzed a moment where internal pathology paranoia fueled by chemical manipulation and self-denial has constructed a completely operational yet false threat matrix.
The complexity and horror of the danger are rooted not in the environment itself, but in the mind interpreting it.
Which raises an important question for you to consider. If the subject's perfect paranoia creates a reality where surveillance is real and inescapable, where the sound of the threat is literally his own racing heart, how functional is the difference between objective reality and a perfectly self-sustaining pathological system?
If the internal nightmare dictates every external action, does the presence of the objective threat, like the assassins, even matter to the immediate outcome of the subject?
We leave the subject in motion, propelled by a self-defeating chemical loop, perpetually stumbling into momentary darkness every time he steps under a light. The hunt continues, unresolved.